Alrighty, so next are Ignites. Raise your hand if you have never seen an Ignite talk before. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to briefly go through what the Ignite actually is. So we have 5 speakers this afternoon. Each of them has 20 slides prepared. The slides will auto-advance every 15 seconds. So it is very fast-paced and also a lot of fun. So we're going to get started, because I think that the best way to learn about what an Ignite is to watch it and then do it. So if you think that this looks like fun, let us know. And we will love to have Ignite speakers at the DevOps Minneapolis meetups every month or so. So we're going to get started. So first person, Jenna. All right.
Am I going? Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm going to talk about not talking about women in tech and what we can do instead. I want to make sure that we are having constructive conversations, and I'm going to give you some actions that you can take away today. Full disclosure, I have 0 cat pictures here. So I'm not going to talk about what the problem is because I only have 15 seconds, and you guys all have the power of Google in your hands, and you can figure that out on your own. So I commonly get this question, and I get it about once a week from a variety of different people, and when I take the time to answer it, it either goes unheard or it's a bunch of talk and people aren't actually taking any action. So that's great. I really want people to be talking about what the challenges are that we face as women in technology and the problems that are here, but I also want to turn the conversation around and empower you all to do something about it. So I'm going to give you 6 actions that you can take and some examples of what we're doing here in the Twin Cities. Also, I co-lead an organization here called the Twin Cities Geekettes, so a lot of these examples are from stuff that I'm doing with that organization. So number 1 is provide a community for women to gather, to connect with other women in their industry, in their field, to find advice, to get advice, to find mentors. It's very powerful having a community of women that other inspiring women, and it's a really awesome thing to see events like this workshop here, and where women connect and make other friends. Second, provide a place to learn. There is something like a bajillion meetup groups in the Twin Cities and other organizations that are focused on talks, conferences, workshops, training. Some of these are focused directly on women. They're focused on girls. They're focused on kids as well. And Great Ladies is one that Geekettes has partnered with on some workshops. They focus on the great tech stack. Third, promote and self-promote. So if you're doing something cool, talk about it. If your friends are doing something cool, talk about it. In this next slide, Beth is gonna do a little bit of promotion about a hack that she saw at a hackathon pitch. It was with a Star Wars toy and an Arduino, and so she called out the Arduino group, and they ended up getting asked to go and present at the meetup last week. And here, Kim, one of the members of the hackathon team, she actually did a little bit of self-promotion here. She told people about what she's working on and what she's gonna go do. And it turns out that the meetup that night, I didn't get to it, but it was packed. Number 4 is actively recruit. And this goes for hiring, finding conference presenters, mentors, volunteers. Reach out to the women in the community. We are natural networkers. And Bridget here is actually, she's the one who, she encouraged me to show up at this today and do an Ignite talk, and she actively wanted to find content that she wanted to hear at her conference. Fifth, become a mentor. You're gonna learn so much more from your mentee than they're gonna ever learn from you. And as a mentor or a volunteer, you don't have to be an expert in your field or whatever it happens to be to share your experience with someone else. And like I said, all those meetup groups and organizations here, we all need your help. And finally, empower your people. Empower the people of your organization to speak up and to speak out, to go and volunteer, to become a mentor. Give them the space where they can connect with other women and learn from other people, and give them a space to grow. And what ends up happening is you end up with the mayor of Minneapolis on your doorstep of the hackathon that you organize, and she's offering even more words of wisdom and encouragement, and it's very, very motivating to keep going. The final result, though, is seeing people from the community, women from the community, tweeting stuff like this and seeing the impact that you had on them, and it's very powerful. So if there's anything I can leave you with today, it is that to stop talking about women in technology and the issues we face and start doing something about it.
How'd everybody enjoy the morning? Yeah. So this is 15 more seconds of time I'm going to fill. Matt's doing a dance. Matt and I are co-organizers for Chicago, so you should definitely think about making it down to Chicago. Okay, so I'm Mike Lanyon. I work at a digital ad agency called Critical Mass. I'd like to talk about an experiment kind of that we're doing with web performance monitoring. In DevOps, we often talk about monitoring the systems that provide the experiences, but not monitoring the end user's experience itself. So Critical Mass is a digital experience design agency. That means we put the customer at the center of our process, and we want to influence, we want to use our influence with our clients to make customers' lives better. So more specifically than web performance, I'd like to talk about the front-end developer's relationship with prod. Maybe there's some banging out some code, an FTP up to production, and then who knows what happens. The preparation for production has gotten a little bit more robust. There's lots of fancy tools that help you go through the pipeline in a more automated way, but there's still like some sort of magic at the end, and there's no operational visibility, there's no understanding of what's going on at the end. So webpagetest.org is one of the things we use to understand, quantify the end user experience a little bit. The integral of the area above these lines is composited into a speed index, and you can use that for like whether you've made the website experience better or worse. But it's still not that real-time feedback. There's no idea of this user had this experience on our website. And originally I had this like effortless web perf monitoring idea. It's not effortless, it does take some more work. So enter RUM, real user monitoring. This is something that's come about in the past few years. There's APIs being built into browsers. There are products, there's companies even that are sponsors here that provide RUM monitoring. One of the foundational pieces of RUM monitoring is the navigation timing API. You can see a reasonably robust request lifecycle there. All these different events you can hook into, do the math, and the browser will give you the amount of time it took. So a little bit of a tangent. Go is something that I've wanted to play with for a while. Never really had a use for it. I heard it was fast. It seemed like a good application for trying to collect some of this real user monitoring. And so that's what I did. I was inspired by a GDS team project that collects content security policy reports. Using their kind of example, I spent way too much time writing a program that too few people have used. There's a couple of primary routes. One is to collect that knife timing API information. Another, requested by one of the web developers, was to collect, and this is actually the wrong path, JS errors, to understand what errors are happening on the website. So the nav timing information gets displayed after going through a monitoring pipeline like this. It's a squiggly line, just like all the other squiggly lines we have. But there's no, like, you can't understand the user's story in this. But when the web development team saw this, they were like, oh, I wonder what that cluster of errors, and we usually have client IPs in here as well, so you can correlate some of the errors a little bit better. They were wondering what the story was behind a collection of errors. So while the nav timing data ended up being really cool to me, who really enjoys squiggly lines, it didn't end up providing that story. It wasn't the game changer that JS error reporting was for our front-end development team. So operationalizing this, write a lot of bits, got to configure a lot of bits, got to hook it into your monitoring pipeline. It's got to create the dashboards ideally in a somewhat of an automated way. Just being valuable as a story in and of itself isn't enough for us to widely adopt it. So we use Chef. We use Chef for all sorts of things, to configure the HTTP collector bits, the statsd bits, forwarding to the time series storage, or configuring the elk stack and all that other good stuff. There's sample JavaScript that is framework agnostic that comes with the stack, or this is very easy to add into your application so that your application ships and reports nav timing or JS error information. And then part of like our full stack loadout includes a sample page that has this JavaScript in it and all of the collection bits, so that going to the default page that comes up will actually give you spikes in your graph in Grafana. So what I'd like you to take away from this is thinking about the tools and systems you can provide your teams to have a better relationship with production and a better relationship with your end user or your client's end users. I would love to chat about this some more. So a big idea maybe packed into a few slides, but thank you.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit. There will be some audience participation here and some dramatics, so don't get over concerned. So it should be pretty exciting. So as I said, slide will come up here in a second. My name is Larry Pullman. I'm from Target Corporation, and today I want to talk about vulnerability. Vulnerability is something that I think we are not appreciating enough in our communities, and it'll make us a heck of a lot better. So first of all, it's a DevOps conference, so we have to talk about empathy. Culture is so important to our workplace. When you have a good culture at your workplace, you're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to get a lot more done. And empathy is part of this. It's how do you feel? And empathy is in other places too. So my daughter's school, it's awesome. It's International Baccalaureate on the north side. And they have this cool little rhyme that they teach all the pre-kindergartners. Are you okay? I know how you feel. Can I help you? So I guys want you to turn around and tell each other these 3 lines. Are you okay? I know how you feel. Can I help you? So now that we've broken the ice, we need empathy there. To feel, you need to be vulnerable. So like as I'm making a fool of myself in front of the Portland Target with the bird on it with the Pokemon, I'm making myself susceptible for people making fun of me, but I'm doing this for my daughter. But I want to say that when I say vulnerability is important leadership, we normally don't think of that. I mean, think of George Washington. Strong, has good integrity, stuff like this. You do not necessarily think of a person that's weak and not vulnerable. So kind of twist this around, invulnerable. Think of castles, things that are not able to feel. If you can't feel harm, how can you be empathetic and say, I know how you feel? So if you act destructible, you're not going to do this. Secondly, we can make lots of mistakes. We make mistakes because we get overconfident in the knowledge we have. We also will fail because we don't know enough in general. It's a very fine line to do things perfectly. So I tell you today, you need to find ways to show your teammates, your family, on how to feel pain and be vulnerable. And this is probably a bad example, but I think I'm okay. I got back up, so thank you, Jason. Now, falling down's probably not the best way to show that you feel pain. What are some smarter ways we could do it? Because, you know, we will all fall down. We will all get injured. So what are some safer ways and more sane ways to show that we're not feeling great and show our vulnerabilities to others? So one idea is that some celebrities do is go on the talk show circuit. Well, most of us don't have access to go on Ellen, tell our life stories. and I'm sure you don't want to set up your family room with a TV camera and stuff, so what are other ways we can do this? So first of all, just admit your mistakes. Today we're talking a lot about monitoring where it painfully shows big spikes when things break. Why don't we do that with ourselves? I mean, not write a 404 error on us, but show us those mistakes. So be out there, be vulnerable, tell about your family, who you are, and when things are going great for you, and when things are going terrible. And if you need some kind of ideas for icebreakers when you're meeting someone new, I have a couple up here. So first of all, start with the basics. Tell your coworkers about your family. So for example, I have a picture up here of my family. I'm there, my wife Melissa. We have 2 kids, Evie, my younger daughter Lauren. Yes, she's adopted because she doesn't look like us. So you guys get 45 seconds to do this yourself. So turn to your neighbor. First thing I want you to do is say something you're bad at. So like, I cannot write object-oriented code. And then turn to your neighbor and tell him something good. So come on, guys, talk. This is where you should be saying something good. 15 seconds to wrap up. So, to recap this whole discussion today, I know how you feel. And we need to provide empathy in this community, and in order to provide empathy, you have to be vulnerable, because vulnerable makes you feel pain. And this will make your life better, not just at work, but at home, every part. And for Target, we will delight the guests this way. So it'll make you and your team better. If you have questions, I'm at Larry at Twitter or LarryPullman@Target.com. Thank you so much for participating today.
Hello. So good to see so many people here. Raise your hands if you like games. Ooh, good. All right, well, I'm Jason Clifford. I'd like to share with you a few ideas that I have around board games and using them as an excellent way to develop community at work. I'm going to cover a few of the benefits of playing board games, a few tips that I've learned while organizing board game nights, and then also cover a few games that are popular. When I ask people to name a few games off the top of their head, I often hear games like Monopoly, Life, and Risk, a lot of games that you probably played as a child. Games are often long, rely on luck, or eliminate players before the game is over, creating a negative gaming experience. In the last 10 years, board games have rapidly been improving and growing in popularity. This is largely due to the merging of different board game styles, better gamer feedback over the internet, and increased awareness from YouTube channels such as Geek and Sundry's Tabletop series. There's a massive number of games available, providing just about any experience you want. These games aren't always available at your local department store. You gotta kind of search them out. But games like Carcassonne can be played casually during conversation with friends, or Resistance for an intense game of deception and deduction. Popular recent trend is cooperative games. Games create a high degree of collaboration and interaction, which help to develop stronger connections with other players and can be used as a method of team building. Games can also help reduce stress between individuals by creating a fun atmosphere in a different context. Games can also teach you a lot about the people you're playing with, such as their learning style, how they handle stress, or make decisions. Watching someone's attitude in a casual setting like playing games can often help predict how they will behave elsewhere. Development of skills such as time and resource management, negotiation, leading, working through problems, and empathizing with others are just a few other personal benefits of playing games. Couple tips to organizing games. The first one is to learn a game well enough that you know how to teach it. Nothing ruins a game more than having some new players come in and having all of your time spent reading the rules and trying to figure out what to do. So if you're going to organize a game night, you need to know the games really well. Also, be inclusive. This is a topic that we've already covered a little bit. Don't exclude anyone just because you don't think that they might be interested in board games. They may surprise you. Part of being inclusive is to also lower the fear barrier. People might think, oh, people will judge me if I go and play this game or if I go join this group, because that's not what I'm used to doing. Another thing is location. Location is an important aspect. It needs to be accessible and inviting for new players. My favorite place to play is Fantasy Flight Game Center in Roseville, and it's family-friendly and non-threatening. Finding a place like this is important to being inclusive and welcoming. There are many games I could tell you about, but I'll start with a few of the primary games played at my table and ones that are very easy to learn and also unique from other mainstream games. The Resistance is set in the not-so-distant future where corporations have taken over government. Each player gets a secret identity and is either a member of the Resistance or a spy. Players take turns selecting teams to go on missions where those players can secretly vote for the mission to succeed or sabotage the mission. Resistance is an excellent party game, and while there is a high degree of deception, it also forces a lot of interaction among the players. It also helps you learn to read others and pushes you to think strategically to either figure out who the spies are or how to stay hidden if you are the spy. In cooperative games, all the players win or lose together and must learn to work together to win. In Forbidden Desert, for example, your team has crash landed in the desert and must find 4 parts to your ship in order to leave. The catch: the sun is beating down on you, depleting your water supply. And a sandstorm is moving around the board, burying everything in sand. I like to think of cooperative games as mini projects where you get to see how everyone works together, facing some difficult decisions. You can watch everyone learn to work together and see if people lead the team, boss everyone around, or give strategic input. These are excellent team building games. Betrayal at House on the Hill is all about theme and experience. The players start out exploring a haunted house and deal with events and find items. Eventually, the haunt is triggered, and you find out that a member of the group has betrayed the others. The game gets tense as the survivors have to do just that, survive. Each side has their own unique goals to win, and the other side doesn't know what they are. Every game of Betrayal is a new experience. Next up, we have one that I think most of you will recognize. We have Cards Against Humanity, or Bridget put together DevOps Against Humanity. It's a simple party game where you play cards to fill in a blank. This game is great for just casually sitting around and having a really good time, and this gets ridiculous very quickly. This one will be available tonight, I believe, and I'll also be available tonight with a few of these games and willing to teach any of you. There's a lot of you, so maybe just a few of you how to play. So I'll be available tonight. I also organize a board game time at Fantasy Flight Games if you're local or ever in town on the first Saturday of the month. This month, because of the 4th of July, it'll be actually this next Saturday, so you're welcome to join.
All right, so I'm Jason Walker. Got a couple, at least a few seconds before. You guys have seen the pattern, right? Rinse and repeat. There's like this long wait time for next. Once it does come up here, one of the things I wanted to tap into is around empathy, fairness, and contentment. And I mentioned earlier today in the sponsor pitch around transformation at Target, and it's something that is very much, that rocket taking off is very much in the pre-flight stage. But the principles over on the right are around sustainability. Not my list, it's the list I found. This Venn diagram is something that Brent Nelson up front and I have come up with. And we use this as a way to demonstrate kind of the 3 layers of a DevOps perspective, removing technology from it, so that's not about tools, et cetera. But getting a little deeper into the empathy piece, we're applying things like fairness and contentment. And with this, when it comes down to the fairness piece, it isn't about equality. It's more about making sure that we're applying the right things in place. And with contentment, it's about satisfaction. Because ultimately, when it comes down to, there's been references to like John Willis and the CAMS idea. Our moral horizon is going to be about how we deal with each other from a culture perspective. And this is really where we're able to get a little deper into things, because as we go through this transformation, there's going to be emotional responses to the change. It's going to elicit things like frustration, anger, and just even anxiety, and confusion, et cetera. And as we go through and we work towards, as a culture, as a community, and how do we make it better, those emotional responses will start to change. We'll start to see things like more happiness, more things getting into a state where we talk about infrastructure as code. More people are going to know about what that means, from the business side down into support and everything in between. But one of the sustainability principles here is around time, because as those emotions rise up, there's going to be a need to let time pass, because we need data to actually start to influence some of our new decisions, and it not just be those emotional responses of, no, that sucks, that person did terrible things, what have you. Because transformation is going to leave a little bit of, there's going to be some legacy stuff out there that we're going to have to clean up. So when it comes down to correlating these things to empathy, there's a cognitive and an emotional response to empathy. If you think of from an emotional perspective, the contact points of when we commiserate with each other. It could be good news. It could be bad news. It could be commiserating about Y2K if anyone's been around long enough to recall actually staying up for 36 hours. No. Vicki Horner is a comparative psychologist at Emory University. 2011, she did some cognitive empathy tests with chimpanzees, two chimpanzees in two different pens, and it was about play. What they had is one of them had a green token and a red token, and depending upon the actions of the other one that didn't have the token, 60% of the time the one chimp would give the green token, meaning they both got snacks if the play was actually mutually beneficial. If the other one was spitting or fleeing poo, it would end up with the red token, meaning that only that one would get the snack. So empathy is actually a two-way street when we think about these things. When it comes down to fairness, it's not about equality, it's about compromise, it's about fairness, it's about the right thing being put into place. Now, I mentioned the transformation, and this is actually a piece. We're moving away from the notion of platforms and the fiefdoms and caring about the objects and moving towards functions and services. And instead of it being everyone gets the same type of platform and the same solution, it's let's actually start to make really smart decisions about the way we deliver our services and give people what it is that they need using the use of like a minimum viable product, that type of thing. Because ultimately what we need to do is get out of our own way and stop it being about you need to open up an incident to engage my team and make it about a post of here's a status of the way that the service is working. Tom Marshburn, unfortunately, through the conversion, you don't get to see the animation. He puts his cup out and lets it go. Tom Marshburn is an astronaut. He was on the space station for multiple years. The notion here is that we need to be able to start changing our behaviors and recognize that our environment's changing. When gravity's there, you're not going to be able to just leave your coffee cup out. Applying a little bit of an OODA loop to this, when we look at observing and orienting and applying the services model, we're going to have to start to look through different perspectives, different speeds, what's going on in the environment. Because ultimately, we built up a ton of technical debt. There's a lot of complication, a lot of complexity. We have an opportunity to start to remove those things because we're going to care about those functions and not the objects, like I'd mentioned. So the service owners are going to be in a position to be able to say, let's start to remove the waste, especially where we've built in process for whatever reason, and the steps lead nowhere. We have an opportunity to start to remove those steps one at a time. And I think this next one is actually going to be another animation. No, it's not. Because ultimately, from a retail perspective, we've got 2,000 stores, we've got .com, we've got mobile apps, and we start to look at it from an empathy perspective and deliver things in a systems thinking way. We've got to understand what the view is going to be from our clients, internal, external, et cetera. And ultimately, as we go through this and we learn, animation's not going to work. Two boxers, it's about reflexes and adaptability. The guy in the blue trunks does a left hook, but actually completely misses the guy in the red. The ref is like in close and then jumps back. It looks pretty cool when the animation actually works. So, yeah. Am I just up here? Okay, hey. I think according to the schedule, Open Spaces is coming up. Hey, Tom's coming up. Bridget's on the Twitter machine. I bet. Yes? Sweet.
All right. Huge round of applause again for all of our Ignite speakers.